So we didn't work in our clinic with anything with scales or feathers. So no reptiles, no birds. Okay, no scales or feathers. So everything was cat. Mostly, look, it's mostly dogs by far and away.
Hi, welcome into Shed Talk. I'm your host, Sean, where we have inspirational stories and talk to small business owners all over the country. Also, we get some crazy stories. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
All right, welcome back in to another good show, y'all. Oh, fantastic guests coming in. I gotta do my little intro for our guests as they come in. And this one, guest that comes in, has a list of achievements and things that she has done. She is a 1996 graduate from The Ohio State University, veterinary medicine, with over nearly 30 years of experience. They served as a president in their regional veterinarian association, as a trustee with the Ohio Veterinary Medical Association as well, and is currently on an advisory with the Ohio State Veterinarian School of the Stanton. What is that? Advisory board?
Stanton
Please.
Foundation. Yeah, the Stanton Foundation.
The Stanton Foundation. My bad. Sorry about that.
No, it's
Welcome
good.
in, my guest.
Hi,
How you doing? How you doing today, Jill?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Jill, can I call you Doctor? Doctor Jill?
Sure, that sounds good. Whatever.
Okay. So, so many places to go all over here when it comes to veterinarian. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into wanting to get into the field of veterinarian and working with pets?
You know, I almost think it's one of those professions that's like a calling.
Hmm.
When I was 4, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And, you're growing up, and I got to get ready to graduate from high school. And I thought, man, that seems like a lot of school, right? I don't know if I want to go
Hmm.
to school for 8 more years after I graduate from high school. So I kind of took a little turn left and went 1 year uh, I was going to be a nurse because I thought
Okay.
I don't have to go to school as long. And after 1 year and how quick college went by, my parents and I talked, and we were like, listen, you got to do what you've always dreamed of doing. So I shifted right back and off to veterinary medicine I went. So I've just always wanted to do it. I don't know anything different.
So, can you walk us through how it was back in the 90s, how it was then, and how it has it evolved?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Technology has evolved. Getting into veterinary school has evolved. Back when I went, it was very competitive to get into veterinary school. I mean, you have to have a very strong scientific and math background, that kind of thing. You have to get good grades. You have to have experience. And it was very competitive to get in. Now that has just multiplied by hundreds to get in. And they expect so much experience. There, some of the resumes that we're going through for these kids, these applications to get into veterinary school are crazy tremendous of the things they've done, research projects they've been on, veterinary clinics they've worked on, the different levels of species that they have to work in, anywhere from small animals with cats and dogs all the way up into large animal, horses, cows, that type of thing. You have to have a very diverse background. You have to have
Hmm.
been very involved. You have to have been a leader in a lot of the things that you've done, like organizations and things that you've participated in. It's highly competitive, and Ohio State's one of the top veterinary schools in the nation. So if you want to go to veterinary school, man, you got to put in the work.
Wow. So you pretty much have to have a history. They want to kind of see you from early childhood evolving. They want to see what you have been involved, like volunteer work. Is that what you're talking about too?
They
Like
want
they
to
want
see
to see
you,
that?
really, they look back to college days. They really don't look back
Mhm.
to high school and that. They don't reach back quite that far, but they'll reach back to early, were you in your local veterinary club, in undergrad? Did you serve on, were you a member or were you the president of that kind of thing? And they'll really go back and look at what's your volunteer work? Have you been working at some humane societies? Have you been in veterinary clinics and actually restrained animals and helped to give injections and help the doctor side by side, or were you just kind of a casual observer? So it really looks at both the breadth and depth of your experience.
Okay, that's cool. So as far as in whenever you were had your clinic, you had your own clinic at one point in time. Is
I
that correct?
did. I did. When I
How did
first
that
graduated,
evolve?
yeah, let me tell you. When I first graduated from veterinary school, my first job was by myself in a clinic in the middle of a very urban area. And it was an interesting coming up because you're pretty wet behind the ears, and I didn't know a whole lot coming out of veterinary school. And that first 8 or 9 months was trial by fire, let me tell you. Then I
Right.
took some jobs with some clinics, learned from some mentors and that type of thing, and always just wanted to come back to my hometown. I live in a rural community in Ohio,
Mhm.
and, my husband and I are both from here, so we know a lot of people. And I always wanted to practice in my community. So about 2005, I decided that I was going to start my own veterinary practice. We started in a leasehold space, 4,000 square feet, built it out, got that going. And then in 2012, built a standalone brick and mortar clinic. Beautiful. Loved the clinic. We had a veterinary side. We had a boarding and grooming side. It still exists. I just don't own it anymore. And
Mhm.
I had that clinic until 2021, when I had the opportunity to sell it to an associate and take an early retirement.
Jeez, I
Yeah.
would definitely say you love that kind of work. Now take us back to can you tell us about some of the creatures, the little fur babies and the different pets you had to work with
Yeah.
that people don't think
So
about?
yeah, so we didn't work in our clinic with anything with scales or feathers. So no reptiles, no birds, okay? No scales or feathers. So everything was cat, mostly, look, it's mostly dogs by far and away. Most people are bringing their dogs to the vets. Cats, they don't get as much veterinary care. People have a lot of cats, but they don't get as much veterinary care. That's kind of a statistical fact across the nation. And then we'd see
Really?
the yeah, we'd see the occasional guinea pig, an occasional rat, an occasional ferret, those kind of things. Rabbits occasionally, but dogs by far and away get the most veterinary care, then cats, and then the other little guys come behind that. So you'd see some interesting stuff. I mean, you'd see no day was the same. No day was the
Now,
same.
now I do got a question that I know a lot of my viewers and listeners are asking. What is some of the things that you had to remove from some of these critters' stomachs? Have you ever to remove something like really
Oh
random, like
gosh. One of the most interesting ones, and I didn't do the surgery myself, my associate did it. She was the surgeon that day. And some guys were working at a house and it was cold out and they had soup they were drinking, and they poured it out into the gravel where they were working. And that dog smelled that soup and ate the gravel, and its whole stomach was just a bag of gravel. My poor
oh my god,
associate spent, I don't know how long, digging, I mean, gobs and gobs of gravel out of this dog's stomach.
wow.
That dog was, of course, very sick, did fine after that. But probably the most interesting one I had early on in my career was, people have pet rats. And a rat had gotten its leg caught in the cage. And I had to amputate a rat's leg. That
Oh
was
man.
that was some intricate work keeping that little guy. But he did fine. He did
Okay.
fine. Not That's
Okay.
not something you
Okay.
do every day.
Right. Right. So being that you sit on the board right here for the advisory for standing here with this, uh,
Yes.
what future do you like to see? What would you like to see evolve in the future for it?
I'll tell you, I always call them kids, but I would tease the young people at the veterinary college that are senior students. And now, like, I had to walk uphill both ways. I was walking in the snow, because the way that veterinary school has evolved is it doesn't even look like the same place. And the Stanton Advisory Committee that I'm on is we're formed to take practitioners with like practical everyday knowledge, and we come in and give that practical overview to the university so that the things they're learning work in the outside world. So they've built like a skills lab where they have prosthetics and things that the kids can work on, learn how to suture, that type of thing. And the most interesting thing I think that's evolving is there's starting to be this concept of spectrum of care.
Hmm.
So think of when you're in a university setting, you're kind of in the ivory tower. You have all the best specialists, because in veterinary medicine, we have specialists just like human medicine. So there's neurologists, there's cardiologists, there's, endocrinologists. We have the same, all those specialties. You just have to go to school longer to get boarded in those.
Now, is that an ongoing educational refresher? Once you get these certifications, you have to continue to go and
So yeah.
refresh?
So I went to undergrad for 4 years, got an undergraduate degree, but you have to have the prerequisites to apply to veterinary school. Veterinary school itself is 4 years, and then you're considered a general practitioner. So those are most of the people you're seeing, like your doctor, where you go in.
Hmm.
That's where you get your vaccines. That's where if you have a stomach ache, all those things. That's what you're seeing. Beyond that, you would have to go for an internship and a residency to become boarded in a specialty. So it's beyond that. Now, to maintain a veterinary license in general, like I have to go to continuing education and keep that up so that I get all the hours in, or I can't keep my license. So I still go for continuing education even as a retired person, because I'm not going to lose that license. But yes, the
Right.
boarded specialties go way above and beyond that.
Wow. Wow. You put that's a lot of schooling on top of that. Like 4 years in college, plus another four, plus some more schooling. That's a continuous thing that you have to do.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Has AI technology played a part in this at all?
Absolutely. So AI is being used now for like medical records, that type of thing, so that you're transcribing and that, where you're just talking and it's transcribing for you. They're using AI in some of the testing. Radiology is using a lot of AI. Things like urinalysis and those types of things, cytology, where we're looking at cells underneath microscopes, all are moving towards AI. So it is really that. And the spectrum of care that we were talking about, when you're in these veterinary hospitals and you have these kind of ivory tower, everybody's the specialist there, you get to work alongside the best. The thing is that most of the kids graduating from veterinary school aren't going to do that. They're going to be general practitioners. So they need to be given a practical experience. How do I have a conversation with somebody about vaccinations and the ins and outs of that? How do I have a conversation with somebody about euthanasia? How do I deal
Yeah.
with that? And so one of the things they've done with the Stanton Foundation at Ohio State is they've created another clinic separate from the veterinary hospital that is intended to mimic a veterinary clinic like you would take your pet to. And the senior students act as doctors, and then there's those of us that will come in and observe and make sure they're being practical, getting practical knowledge, able to communicate with the
Mm.
clients. So it's really setting these future doctors up to work in the real world. That's really evolved. That's something that's becoming more popular in all the veterinary schools. We'd have other veterinary schools come visit and want to
Just
see
to
how
see
that
exactly
spectrum of
what you're
care.
doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
pick up to see exactly what you're doing. You know, as far as and when it gets down to all the critters, I mean, majority of us we have either cats or we have dogs, and they're like our kids. And as far as and when it gets down to their diets and what
Yeah.
a dog or a cat can consume, I mean, there's so many different dog foods and cat foods out there advertised. In your experience, what do you feel was the best lifestyle change that you can implement with your fur baby?
The worst thing we see related to diet is
Mhm.
obesity. Is obesity.
Really?
So I mean, I do care what diet you're feeding, but no matter what you're feeding, we have that problem in America in general in our population, and that translates to our pets. And, there's been things to show that even veterinarians, we're looking at that differently because the norm starts to get a little bigger and bigger, right? So one of the best things you can do is make sure your pet is not obese. My husband and I are keeping one of our relatives' dogs right now. She's in fat camp because she gained a lot of weight, and so we have her on a special diet, and she's got a lot of joint issues, and she was in a lot of discomfort, and
How do
getting that
you
correct.
actually? How would you know like what the ideal weight of your critter would be? How do you know that? Like
That's a
because
really good
if you
question.
see some bones,
Yeah, so you should, though. You should be able, we always tell our clients, you should be able to feel the ribs, but not see them. Feel the ribs, but not
Okay,
see them. And when
okay,
you
y'all
get
hear
that
that?
little extra layer of jiggly over there, yeah, we need to dial it back. And whether that means you just need to, I usually would tell my clients, let's take your current diet, let's not change that, let's cut it by a third. And then if that didn't work, then we had to go to special diets where we get, less calories and get a little more activity. Your house cats are a big problem because they don't get any activity. They sleep all day.
Right.
Dogs are a little easier because you can take them on an extra walk, that kind of thing. But that's the most important thing with food. Now, as far as food brands, I won't mention any. But I will say there's only like a few that actually do clinical trials and feed trials on their food. Those are the
Now,
brands that I would typically
now,
recommend.
okay. So you're saying the ones that have it on the bag that says that they have done tested third party testing before this became on the market. Is that the brands you say
Yeah,
that
there's
you
only
would?
you could Google it, but there's only like three brands or so that actually do clinical trials, feeding trials, and that type of thing, and really do the research to make sure their food is safe and do the safety checks, that kind of thing, to make sure things are being monitored properly. As far as creating your pet's own diet, that can be very difficult. We call that raw diets, that type of thing. Getting enough minerals, vitamins, that you just have to really work with somebody that's a nutritionist in a veterinary field, something like that, to make sure your pet's getting all the nutrients that it needs. Cats are a really good example because if cats don't get taurine, they will have heart difficulties. So there's just certain things that certain species are deficient in. And if you're not providing that, you're going to create a problem. Whereas your brand names know that and already have that implemented in their diets.
Nice, nice. So as far as in when it gets down to like allergies, like
Mhm.
do
That's the
pets
most
get
common thing we
allergies?
see.
Is that
It's just,
like seasonal allergies? Like how we have to take Claritin as a human? Like do
yeah.
pets get something like that?
Oh yeah, and we've prescribed that for pets before. So the most three common allergies pretty much anywhere in the United States are going to be flea, far and away. And I just want to say to your viewers and listeners, they don't they don't have to be you don't have to be seeing fleas to have a flea allergy. A flea can jump on your pet, bite it. It's the saliva that they're allergic to. It's the allergens in the saliva that they're allergic to. So, you know, we vets will get out our flea comb and look for evidence of fleas. So people will say, "Well, I don't see any." Well, if you're seeing them, you've got a really big problem. You don't want to see
Right.
them. The next one is allergens in the air. So, your pollens and things like that. We'll see in like Ohio, where we have a fall and a spring. We'll really start to see a lot more when the fall and the spring come, and then some in between. And then food would be the third most common. And, it's the food that everybody always wants to change first because they think that's the problem. But usually it's the other two that would be the issue.
It's the
Yep.
environment also that plays a big factor in there too.
Yes.
Now, do you advise that house dogs and cats get some daylight? Like some people, they'll keep their dog in all day long, come home,
Right.
let the dog out the cage, and they don't let the dog outside but to do the business and come back in. Do you think they need some vitamin D as well?
Just like any of us, you feel better if you get some fresh air, right? Now,
That's true.
your house cats, where do you find them? You find them laying in the sun, right? They know. They know to go lay in
Sunbathing.
the sun. They know to go soak it up. So it's definitely important, especially for dogs with just exercise, right? Just that
Hmm.
exercise aspect of that. But I do think we all feel better with a little sunlight, and cats know to do that. They go to the window and get some, and your dogs will want to stay out as long as you'll let them. So I do definitely think that is a very beneficial thing for them. Yeah, for sure.
Now, now, Doc. So whenever it gets down to the food consumption, should food always be available for a dog and water, or should it be like like when we sit down and eat dinner or lunch? Should it be certain time frames that water and food should be available?
I'll give you the ins and outs of that. I typically do not recommend free choice feeding, which means leaving it out. Okay. That's where I see the most obesity, frankly, because
Okay.
people are like, oh, the bowl's empty, got to fill it. And they're not really cognizant thinking, what they're actually feeding. Whereas with meal feeding, you can say, okay, my dog gets one measured cup, not a solo cup. That's like 2.5, 3 cups. People will say, I only give my dog a cup twice a day. And I always ask, which sounds crazy, but you have to, well, how big's your cup? Because I'm
Hmm.
talking a measuring cup. And they're like, oh, I feed a red solo cup. Well, that's 2.5 cups twice a day. That's not the same cup.
Right.
So
Right.
that's important. And it's very important. So when your dog's sick and you bring your dog to me and you say, I don't think he's eating as much. I go, well, do you think he's not eating at all? Or has it gone down by a half? Or, you're better able to kind of know how bad it's gotten if you're measuring the food and know how much he's leaving, that type of thing. So I really recommend meal feeding. I think it helps with their metabolism. I think it helps them to have some control. It helps you to have control and know what's going on. But I have had patients that are fine doing free choice feeding. I mean, there's
Okay.
people like that too. I'm not one of them. I have to
Right.
have controlled
So, do you
meals.
think that you should have the water available so they stay
Yeah.
hydrated? Should that
Yeah.
always be available? You
Water,
think?
water unlimited, but the food
Okay.
really you need to know. And with the water too. I mean, especially in cats, they don't drink a lot of water. You kind of have to know what you're putting in there so you do know when they're sick, like how bad they might be.
Another question. This is just one of my questions. I was always curious. Why do some dogs go out and eat grass? What is that for?
Yeah, listen, if I had the answer to that, I'd be on a private island somewhere. But
Yeah.
the deal
Right.
with that is that it always seems to be the ones that have the allergies too. The daggone dogs that have the allergies will go out and eat some fresh cut grass. And I don't, you can't explain to them that that's not good for them. You just got to
Right.
keep those dogs off of it. I had a friend the other day that said, my dog only likes fresh cut grass if it's still moist. He won't eat it if it's dried out. And I said, the only thing you can do about that is just keep him off the grass until it's dried off. I mean, they
Right.
don't, they don't use common sense. They don't use
Right.
common sense. A lot of people think, oh, their belly's upset and they're eating it so they can, relieve themselves and all that. But I mean, some dogs just like to graze. It's just a thing.
That's just the nature of the animal, I guess. Right.
Oh,
Um.
yeah.
So another question for the students that are currently at school at the Ohio State and Veterinarian School. What advice do you have for them?
Oh, that's a rough
That's a
one.
whole bunch.
That's a whole lot of advice.
Right.
Not to get distracted by the big dangly carrots. There's a lot of shiny objects out there. Veterinary medicine has gone very corporate. Not that I'm against corporations, they're certainly doing a lot of good work. But you have to look at the overall what's your work life balance going to be, which is really becoming more and more important to people. What's the clinic atmosphere like? When I go to choose a job, am I going to be happy here? Am I going to go for the few more bucks or am I going to go with the work life balance? Am I going to go with the private owner where I'm going to have a little more say in what goes on around here, where I feel like just comfortable, that type of thing. So don't be distracted by all the big things. Don't just look at the dollar signs. You got to look at more than that because there's a lot of burnout in veterinary medicine, a lot.
Okay. Okay, that's good advice right there. So, out of all the positions and all the roles that you have played over the years in your career, what role would you say is probably the most rewarding one to yourself?
Being a practice owner being a practice owner,
Yeah.
because it was like a fulfillment of a dream, right? I had a dream of
Right.
having a clinic in my own hometown. And the the staff that I had that came through, getting to know their families. My best friend is still my practice manager from that clinic when I had it. Just the relationships I formed with people. Is it frustrating too? Yes. Was it stressful? Yes. uh, and do I want to go back and do it now? No. I'm good. I'm
Right.
good.
Right.
But it was very fulfilling. It allowed me to have my own time freedom. Although it was a lot of work, it allowed me to have my kids with me. It allowed me to be at everything that they did. So it allowed me to have a family and be involved. And it was a gift.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, thank you, Doc Jill. I appreciate you coming on the show. You gave us a lot of good information out there that opened up our eyes to a lot of things that we didn't know, because I know I did not. I mean, everything you pretty much broke down, like as far as when it comes to the critters, that the pets, they're like people. They need the TLC just like how we do, you know? And there's different things that are available for them. So I appreciate you again for coming on the show.
You're welcome. I was happy to do it. You know I enjoy you so much.
All right, thank you so much. And again, y'all, this is Shed Talk. Thank y'all.